The ritual of Imbolc, in my view, is one of the most important ones because it's the first energy, it's the first ritual of the year. In the wheel of the year, the Celtic and the Druid wheel of the year, it's the first one. And it's the one that prepares us to be reborn. It's the energy of the return of the light. And there are several other events that announce the coming of Brigid. There's the Epiphany, which is already a premonition of the energy of birth and rebirth. There's the energy of the feasts of the lights in the Egyptian tradition, which is also a return of the light. But then in Celtic tradition, it's really the 1st and 2nd of February that the light of the hearth of the earth is lit. So Brigid goes and she lights the fire of the earth to allow all the plants to grow again, to bloom again. And this same movement really happens within us. So our creative fire is lit again. So who is Brigid, first of all? Before we can connect to her, we need to know who she is. She is one of the goddesses that are part of the tribe of the Tuatha of Danann. The Tuatha of Danann are the people of the gods. That is the literal translation of Tuatha de Danann. They're a mystical and mythical race of gods that in the Celtic and Irish mythology arrived on the coast of Ireland by boat. No one knew where they came from. They had, most of them had red hair, like the goddess Brigid. And they brought with them the 4 gifts of the Tuatha de Danann. And these 4 gifts contained everything that humanity would need to thrive and to live in abundance on the land and on the earth. So Brigid was one of these goddesses that arrived. In later times, these god people were persecuted and were warred against on the British Isles. And so they had to go underground, and they lived under the ground, under the surface of the earth. Many people believe they still do till this day. And they became the people of the elves and the fairies of the invisible world. And they live in the sacred mounds, in the burial mounds, and they are believed to come back to the surface of the earth at the turning points of the wheel of the year, which are the solstices, the equinoxes, and the 4 great fire festivals. Imbolc is the first of the 4 great fire festivals. Brigid is a triple goddess. A triple goddess means that she presides over 3 different sacred arts, that there are 3 very specific facets to her. But also, of course, the number 3 is the energy of the Triskel, an ancient, very sacred symbol of the Celtic culture and the British Isles. And whenever we have a number 3, a trinity, what this tells us is that Brigid is a goddess of creation, of birth. The number 3 always indicates creation and birth. And the 3 of her different aspects are, she is the goddess of poetry. So she presides over bards and clairvoyants. So she's a patron saint of bards, of poets, of artists. In the Druid tradition, a bard is the person who counts, who recounts, who tells the story of a community through his songs, through his words, and is kind of the library of the history of a community, and so has a very important role in a community. But the bard is also associated with clairvoyance because in the path of becoming a druid, being a bard is the first step, because in ancient Celtic belief, there was no difference between an artist and a medium, a channel, a healer. All these people were tapped into the divine current and the divine source. So to be able to connect to spirits and channel and receive messages, we first had to have access to our creative talent, our creative flow, and be able to create, accompanied by the muse, either in words, in music, or through the physical objects we create. She's the goddess of healing as well, healing through the fire of the spirits. So another goddess that has this capacity to heal with the energy of fire in the Egyptian tradition is the goddess Sekhmet. So she ignites the element of fire within us to burn out the energy of the illness, basically. So this is what we can call in Brigid for as well, if we are a healer or if we want to heal, if we need healing in some aspect of our lives. Specifically, childbirth, fertility, women's health. She's a patron saint of women's health, pregnancy, childbirth as well. She is the goddess of the forge as well. That is the third one of her aspects. The forge is the energy of transformation, the capacity we have to create something, to transform a material form and make it into something useful, functional, or beautiful, but also the capacity to alchemically transform ourselves, to transform the heaviness or the darkness within ourselves and transform it into light. And Brigid helps us to do this. She was a sister of the god Ogma, one of the Tuatha De Danann. He was a solar god and creator of the Ogham. And the Ogham are the Celtic sacred runes connected to the sacred trees, and they were used for divination. So this is important because it makes the link as well between Brigid and the power of language, the power of the spoken word. So the energy of Imbolc is very much about the energy of manifestation and creating our reality through what we speak into being. She's the daughter of Morrigan, who is the goddess of death, and the Dagda, who is the father god of the Tuatha, the god of the cauldron. The fact that she is the daughter of the Morrigan, the goddess of death, is important as well. Because what this link teaches us, and this mythology, is that in order for us to be reborn and to be renewed, we also have to celebrate and accept the periods of death and decline and stillness and darkness in our lives. So to cultivate moments of darkness is important for us to find and cultivate our light as well. So this is what this connection means with Brigid, the daughter of the Morrigan. That it's not something to be feared. And it is something that we have to make an effort for in our day and age, because we live in houses, in cities, in countries where there's an overflow of lighting, of artificial lighting and electricity. And so it's hard for us to still find pockets of stillness and darkness. So what we can do is go for a walk on a new moon night, for example, or go into our garden at night to look at the stars, which is something that the ancients would do. The goddess Brigid is very connected to one of the constellations as well, which we'll see a little bit later, but also to the Milky Way. And nowadays, in many of our countries, we can't even see the Milky Way anymore because there's too much lighting pollution. So it's to reconnect to the magic of the night as well. She's the patron saint, and the Dagda, the father god of the Tuatha. He's the creator god of this godly tribe that landed in Ireland. And his sacred gift to humanity was his cauldron. So his cauldron allowed us to transform ourselves, to transform the elements of the earth, but also it was an energy of abundance. We had access to the energy of abundance through the cauldron, so it's also one of the aspects of the goddess Brigid. She's the patron saint of sacred springs and the home. Sacred springs, because of the element of water. So every living water really, if we go near a living water, which is a sacred spring or a river or an ocean, we can connect to the energy of the goddess Brigid. But in particular, sacred springs, and many sacred springs in Celtic lands are dedicated to the goddess Brigid, because she is the goddess of healing, because she is the muse and the goddess of inspiration. And people knew and intuitively felt that going next to a sacred spring, next to a moving water, was a very inspiring place. And to them, there was no doubt that the inspiration that flowed in these places was the inspiration of the Divine Mother. And this was even acted through a divine marriage rite. So the people of the earth would pledge their allegiance to the goddess near the sacred springs, and in return, they would receive the gifts of inspiration, the gifts of abundance into their lives. Brigid is also a Catholic saint. The Saint Brigid is simply the continuation of the goddess Brigid. So when Catholicism took over the Celtic Isles, the people refused to give up their worship of the goddess Brigid because she was so important to them. So the Catholic Church of Ireland and the UK in general simply transformed her cult into the cult of Saint Brigid. She is the muse, the energy of the muse and the energy of inspiration. So she's really this flow of energy that moves through us and that inspires us. And in other cultures, she has other names. She connects us to the Awen. In Celtic culture and in Druid culture, the Awen is the breath of life. But the breath of life, not only the energy of life and vitality, but also the energy and the flow of inspiration and creativity, just like the Shekhinah or the energy of Kundalini is within our lives and in our bodies as well. The totem animals of Brigid are the cow, the rooster, the swan, the dragon or the snake, it's another form of the dragon, and the phoenix. Other goddesses who are associated with Brigid because they help us understand and complete the picture as well. The goddess Saraswati is basically Brigid in Hindu culture. She has all the same energies and all the same attributes. She's the goddess of creativity and the creative word. She's the goddess of divine flow, embodied in language, understanding, and sound. So she's also the goddess of wisdom. And one mantra that you can use to invoke the goddess Saraswati, if you want to invite her alongside Brigid or instead of Brigid, is May Saraswati, goddess of wisdom, who is honored by the wise, the creator's wife, reside on my tongue. So she's really the energy of the spoken word. And the myth of Saraswati's birth is that Brahma, the ultimate God and the creator of the universe, wanted to create order in the universe. So there was chaos in creation. And he asked himself internally, how can I create order from chaos? And a voice emerged from within him, which was the voice of Saraswati. And Saraswati said, by introducing wisdom. And right after she said that, she emerged from Brahma's mouth on the back of a swan. So this is really the power of the verb, the power of the creative verb. So what we speak, we create into being. So it's really Brigid, Imbolc, Saraswati, they all tell us to pay particular attention to what we are speaking into being and the words that we use to create our reality. The goddess Hathor in Egypt is the counterparts of Brigid and Saraswati in Egyptian mythology, because she is associated with the cow, with fertility, with fire, with creativity. She is celebrated with dance and song and sacred incense and oils. The cult of the goddess Hathor is really the cult of beauty and the cult of abundance. Even if Hathor is more connected to the energy of the spring equinox, because she really already emerges into being, and Brigid is a little bit more underground still. The goddess Isis, because Isis is connected to Mercury, to language, magic, creation, and the energy of resurrection, of course. Isis is the goddess who resurrected the god Osiris, and Imbolc is the feast and the celebration of our own resurrection and the resurrection of nature. And in Isis's origin myth as well, she received her magical powers by tricking the sun god Ra into giving her his magical powers. So Ra's magical powers were contained within his name, and none of the other gods knew his name, and he wouldn't share his name with anyone. So Isis devised a plan where she asked one of her scorpions to sting Ra. And once Ra was stung and he started getting sick and was about to die, she said she could heal him, but in return, he had to give her his sacred name. So he gave his name to Isis, Isis healed him, and from then on, she had the same powers as the sun god Ra. So again, the power of the word and the power of the name. And Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty, love, and pleasure. Here we have an ancient Greek vase with an image of Aphrodite riding a swan. So again, the image of the swan, very present in the symbolism of Aphrodite. And she gives us more of an insight into what we can do, what we can cultivate in our lives to invite the muse, which is the energy of beauty, the appreciation of beauty, and also the attention to detail, the desire to create beauty through our creations. Love, cultivating compassion, and pleasure, allowing us to feel pleasure and to experience pleasure as well. The symbols of Imbolc then. There's the hammer and anvil, the elements of the forge. So they represent the energy of transformation, of alchemy, but also the aspect of our efforts. So we can call in and invoke the energy of the muse. We can meditate on the energy of beauty, but then we also have to take action. So Brigid is about inspired action. So she inspires us, we allow ourselves to be inspired, and then we take action. So we have 50% of the responsibility in the process. The rowan tree, in Glastonbury, there's a beautiful rowan tree at the entry of the Abbey and next to St. Patrick's Chapel. It's a tree of magic, of divination, and of writing, because in ancient times, the wood of the rowan tree was used to carve the ogam, the tree runes used for divination. So the rowan tree is thought since ancient Celtic times to possess this energy of divination and prophecy. So one of the ways in which you can use this symbol is sitting next to a rowan tree and going into meditation under a rowan tree, or picking a little branch or a branch that has fallen with some berries and putting it on your altar and meditate in front of your altar. Or if you have a lot of time and patience and creative energy, you can carve your own ogam as well in rowan wood. The energy of the hearth and the symbol of the cauldron is another symbol that accompanies the goddess Brigid, the energy of fire, alchemy, life force, transformation, and creativity. Again, in the Celtic culture, and for a long time still on Celtic lands, on the British Isles, the first place that would be blessed in the home was the hearth. So a fire would be lit, and this fire would be blessed. And this would really bring the energy into the home. So lighting a fire at home, or even lighting a candle if we don't have a fireplace at home, brings the energy of the fire. Cooking as well, making a meal, sharing a meal with people we love, cultivates the energy of Brigid as well, and brings the warmth into the home and into the hearth. The birch, another symbol tree of Imbolc, the energy of purification and of resilience. And in many stores now, organic stores, you can find birch sap to do a cleanse or a purification. The bell. So this is an image of the bell that is at the bottom of Glastonbury Tor. There's two swans carved on the bell. It's Brigid's bell. And the bell accompanies Brigid because when it's an instrument of sound, and the sound is used to chase away the old and sound in the new. And it's the same symbolism as a shamanic rattle, for example, or the sistrum of the goddess Hathor. Those are instruments that are used to chase evil spirits and to invite in new energy, to clear the energy. And one of the things actually that's important for the energy of Imbolc is to do a house cleanse and a house clearing. Physically cleaning your house and getting rid of items that no longer have a purpose in your house, but energetically clearing the house. What people would do at Imbolc is to open all the doors and the windows of the house and to go through the whole house with sound. So this can be bells, it can be a shamanic drum, it can be a rattle, but to really sound in all the pieces, in all the rooms of your house, especially in the corners, especially around the windows, especially around the doors. People would go around with holy water as well and sprinkle the holy water all over the house. It just invites the energy of renewal into the home. There's a symbol of the arrow. So why the arrow? Because Brigid and Brigid's name means fiery arrow. So fiery arrow is the energy of moving forward, of breaking out of a pattern of sleep, our winter sleep, or a pattern of stagnation, and moving forward, making some choices, creating clarity, and taking action. And then the last one here on our list is the Imbolc cross, or Brigid's cross, which in ancient times, people would make from plants, especially from reeds growing next to the water. You could bend the twigs together and make a cross. You can make it from paper, you can make it from wood. It's a symbol that would be made at Imbolc every year, and that would be blessed and then hung above the front door of the house to invite Brigid's protection on the home and on the people living in the home. And every Imbolc, we would burn the old cross and create a new one and have it blessed at a sacred spring. The cross also represents the constellation of the swan. You have a picture right next to this, which is an image of the constellation of the swan, which is in the shape of a cross. That is why Brigid is associated with the swan, because she is connected to this constellation. In the goddess Saraswati, this energy is even clearer because Saraswati is shown with a lyra, playing a lyra very often. And the lyra constellation is the next one next to the Cygnus constellation. So they're really next to each other in the sky. And then lastly, Brigid's power places. There are two main power places, but I'd say she's present everywhere on Celtic lands, and we can invoke her energy anywhere because she is so connected to the energy of the goddess of creation. So whichever form of the goddess of creation we invoke is summoning as well the energy of Brigid. So there are a couple of pictures here of Glastonbury. So here we have an image of the foundations of the chapel of the goddess in Glastonbury. The foundations are no longer visible. They're covered by the earth in a place called Bride's Mound. So at the bottom here, this field is what we call Bride's Mound in Glastonbury. So there's a little bit of a mound at the back of this field, and under this mound are the foundations of the chapel. So in ancient times, at the very beginnings of the Abbey of Glastonbury, but even before that, this chapel is thought to be older than the Abbey of Glastonbury. Pilgrims would come to Glastonbury, and before they went into the inner temple, and the inner temple being the town, the abbey, but also the Tor and the sacred springs, people would go to the chapel of the goddess to say a prayer and to clear themselves of the energies of the road, of their pilgrimage, and then they would go into the inner sanctuary. Here is an image of the stone that's still found in a field next to Bride's Mound that indicates where Bridie's spring came up to the surface of the earth. Today, there's no longer a spring, but there's a river right next to it. So was it the water of the river that came through there as well in ancient times? We don't know. And then, of course, Kildare in Ireland. Ireland is the country of the goddess Brigid, and especially this place where there's a perpetual flame burning for the goddess all throughout the year, every day of the year. Today, this flame is protected and kept by the nuns of Bridie's monastery in Kildare. And every year at the marketplace, so this is an image of the flame on the marketplace, this flame is lit in honor of the goddess Brigid and her capacity to bring peace. So it's also a peace flame. The lighting and the keeping of this fire in oral transmission, and still, if you speak to people in Kildare, and especially the nuns, they believe that this tradition exists from pre-Christian times, so that there was a community of women priestesses living on the land, tending to this flame, very much in a similar tradition to the Vestal virgins in ancient Greece, the women tending to the creative fire and the fire of the hearth. Under there's an image of Brigid's sacred spring, also in Kildare, where people would go to bless themselves, to purify themselves. The name of the town, Kildare, means Church of the Oak, so a very clear connection to the Druid tradition.